And let's go to share screen. And there we go. Well, welcome everyone. So great to have all of you here for the 5 biggest mistakes speakers make from stage webinar. I'm Chris Natsky. I'm your co-host along with my good buddy, JB Braden. And this is something that JB and I do probably, I guess, once a month. Because we're both been speaking for quite some time. And one of the passions we have is helping aspiring speakers learn about the speaking business, whether it's if you want to use speaking to enhance your current business just by being able to get out in front of people and share a message, or if you have an aspiration to speak on a bigger stage. So we want to share with you today what we consider to be the 5 biggest mistakes speakers make from stage. We feel that we're expert in this because, well, we've made all 5 of these mistakes, if not more. So anyway, let me go here and tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing over the next hour. The purpose of today is to, number one, is identify those biggest mistakes that speakers make. And as I said before, it's because we've made them all. And then share some strategies and tools about either A, being able to handle those mistakes if in fact they do occur when you're on stage, or number 2, and probably most importantly, is to be able to plan ahead so that you can avoid making those mistakes from the beginning. And then after that, we're going to share with you some strategies about how you can really step up your ability to be an effective speaker with a program that we have coming up in August. So with that being said, I'm going to pass this on to my good buddy JB and let him tell you a little bit about him. And I guess I'd ask everyone too, I'm just hearing a little bit of background feedback. If you put yourself on mute for right now, that way we'll keep the recording in good integrity as well. That'd be great. And JB, I want you to tell them a little bit about yourself, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. First of all, I love doing this. Chris and I, we've done a few of these and it's so much fun. And like Chris said, we've made these mistakes. And so we're coming to you to make sure that you learn from our mistakes and you don't have to walk through some of the same things we've gone through. But I've been speaking for over 20 years. I'm an international keynote speaker, spoken around the country to over 1.5 million people. Have had the privilege of having a lot of stage time, which is a key thing when it comes to speaking. So I've been able to do that. Also, I'm a speaker coach. I've been coaching speakers for about 10 years. And just really, that's my major focus, is to help speakers get better and show them how to use speaking as a marketing tool to grow their business, which is one of the things that Chris and I do. And so my company is called Beyond the Field Coaching. And I'm originally from Alabama, and I'm going to be heading back to Alabama here in a little bit. But Chris and I, we've known each other for several years, and we've shared a lot of stages together. And we really enjoy working with our clients to help them become better speakers. So it's just a little bit about me.
Excellent. Thanks, brother. All right. Well, let me share a little bit about myself. My name is Chris Natsky. My business is called Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching. I've been doing life leadership coaching and keynote speaking for the last 10 years. My background comes from martial arts. So I've been training in martial arts since the early 70s. I'm an 8th degree black belt, former national taekwondo champion. And what I do in my coaching business, where I focus more on life leadership and business coaching, is really help people get a real good, gain clarity on their purpose, increase their confidence, and then take inspired action. And one of the things that I did when I was building my martial arts school business in the mid 90s, and I had that until 2013, is I spoke to build my business. So, I mean, I would speak at schools and organizations, and I was all over the place. In fact, I used to joke, if you could fog a mirror and you let me speak, I'd be there. But that's how I built my school. And at the peak of its business, it had over 500 students at one location. So I know how speaking can be used to build your business, particularly if you're an entrepreneur. Also, how important it is if you're leading organizations, because I think any effective leader has to be an effective communicator, particularly nowadays. So that's a little bit about me. And we're going to get into these 5 biggest mistakes. And this whole webinar came about as JB and I were speaking about how can we really serve some people based on some of the knowledge that we have. And, you know, we started this year to collaborate, teaching people how to speak more effectively. As JB said, we've been sharing the stage on several events here in the Denver area, probably over the last 5 or 6 years. And each one of us has a unique perspective about what we bring to the party, but we also, I think, have a real common idea and vision for what it is to be an effective speaker. So with that being said, we're going to get into the 5 biggest mistakes we think speakers make from stage. And JB, why don't you share the first one with them?
Absolutely. The first one is many speakers don't communicate the purpose of their presentation. They don't communicate it, and some don't understand it. And this was one of the problems. This was a mistake that I made when I first started using speaking to market my coaching business. I would get out there and I would speak and I would inspire people. And my purpose was also to convert prospects to clients. And I wasn't doing that very well. And it wasn't until I met one of my speaker coaches that he showed me how to craft the presentation in the right way. And that's the thing that we always do when we work with our clients is the first question we ask is, what's the purpose of your presentation? Because if it's just to inspire, then you're going to craft that presentation a certain way. But is it to inspire and educate the audience? Then that one's going to be crafted a certain way. But for us, we want to know if you want to craft it to inspire, educate, entertain, engage, and also convert. Are you using that presentation as a tool to also get your message out, connect with your audience, generate leads, and convert on the back end? Monetize the stage on the back end, which is a key thing that we teach people to do in our workshops and so forth. So understand what's the purpose of your presentation, and then being able to communicate that in the message that you're delivering and the way you do that throughout. And Chris, we both know what happens when we don't understand the message of our presentation.
Oh, absolutely, buddy. And the thing that I've really come to learn is that you can be super inspiring. You can make a tremendous impact on people. But if you want to gain more from that, if you want to make a greater impact, say, of having them hire you for additional speaking engagements, or if maybe you want them to be part of your coaching program or buy your books or whatever, you need to be able to have that intention in mind as well. And I think what most people have difficulty with is they put together a talk and it's the right talk, but it's for the wrong audience. Or it's the wrong talk for the right audience, or it's the wrong talk for the wrong audience. So they don't really understand how to get really specific. And one of the things that I started to learn when I was speaking is how I could utilize certain ways of building my coaching business through speaking. And we're going to talk a little bit later on the power of story, but for the longest time, I was getting frustrated. I'd come and do a talk. People would say how great it was, but no one would ever come and visit me at my table afterwards. But there were some different strategies that I was able to use because I got clear about why I was doing that talk and gave people some easy next steps to engage with me afterwards. And then I could see if there was a match for us to work together. So number one is really understanding, what the purpose of the presentation is. Not just pushing information out, but being able to engage people so that they can become inspired and giving them easy next steps to engage with you afterwards.
Absolutely, Chris. I love that. And another thing that we want to make sure that is how to communicate when it comes to communicating the purpose is understanding the problem that you solve for your target audience. Okay, because if you're not clear on the target audience that you solve, the problem that you solve, then you're not going to communicate effectively when on stage the problem that you solve for your target audience. So that's another common mistake a lot of people make. They don't sit down and think about, well, what's the problem, the real problem that I solve for my target audience, so that I can now communicate that effectively. And so that's a very big piece there. Then the other thing is a lot of people are unclear of what they want from the audience. Okay, because another big question that we like to ask is, what do you want the audience to walk away with after your presentation? What do you want them to do differently? Because when you can answer that question, then you can clearly communicate the purpose of your presentation by the words that you're using. Okay, do you want them to do something with you, move them to buy a product or a service? So what's a call to action? Do you have a clear call to action? A lot of people miss that. And a lot of times, Chris, we've seen this a lot as well. A lot of speakers, their call to action isn't congruent
Right.
to the message, to the content of what they're saying. And that will definitely throw off your presentation. And you want to talk about messing up your conversion rate, that'll mess up the conversion rate as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and that it might be just to have someone take steps in their own life, right? But I mean, I've had instances, I think, where I've heard speakers, well, man, they were entertaining, they were articulate, whatever, but what were they talking about, right? And you want to make sure that you make that super clear. All right.
Awesome.
So we ready to move on, JB?
Let's get to the number two.
Number two is they try to be someone they're not. And I know that this is one that I really dealt with when I first started speaking. I had this vision in my mind that I needed to be a certain way of certain speakers that I emulated. And so I was thinking I need to be very calm and very poised and very much in control. And when I was speaking, it just wasn't authentic for me and who I was. I was trying to be somebody else. And it really came to a head when I started working with my own speaking coach. And he kept asking me to get more animated. He was asking me to get more engaged with the audience, et cetera. And it was really uncomfortable at first. And then all of a sudden the light bulb went on. He was really asking me to engage with an audience and speak in the same way in which I taught martial arts, which was high energy, which was engaging, et cetera, et cetera. When I learned that, and I allowed myself to be that way and not put myself in a box thinking of who I needed to be, but who I actually was, everything transformed in my speaking. And now, like when I was early on in my speaking career, I would oftentimes do feedback forms. And when I started getting feedback forms saying, you're engaging, you're entertaining, you're funny, great message, now I realized I was being myself versus this robot in front of an audience because I felt I needed to be more professional. Now, obviously, you need to be appropriate based on the audience that you're speaking to. But the big thing I want you to get is find your own unique style and feel comfortable in leaning into that type of style. And you can emulate people if there are people that you really connect with, but make sure you're emulating, but still being yourself. You're not imitating being a second one of them. You need to be the first one of you.
I love that, Chris. When I first started speaking, one of my very first speaker trainings, I was doing a presentation. I was standing. There was like 3 trainers sitting in front of me, and I'm standing up. I'm delivering that presentation in the training. And when I was done, I thought, man, I nailed it because I knew that I didn't miss anything, right? And one of my speaker coaches, he looked at me and he said, JB, you didn't smile one single time during that presentation. And I thought about that. And I realized that I was trying to be one of those serious speakers that I'd seen instead of being my authentic self, like you talked about, Chris. And he said, I want you to practice this presentation and make sure you smile at certain points. And I started doing that because that's a key thing for me, is to smile, because my smile is part of who I am. Right. And it also engages the audience and let them know that I'm approachable. And that's what he was trying to teach me. So tapping into that for me was very important. But that's, for a lot of speakers, that's important, to be able to know when to smile and when not to smile. And so that was a very quick lesson I learned right out of the gate when I started speaking, Chris.
Absolutely. Well, it's so important because really, when we are speaking, you're basically speaking with an audience. You're not speaking to an audience. Right. There's a connection that's occurring. And, one of the things that I had one of my coaches tell me long ago is, like, when you're speaking to a large group, make sure that you're connecting with the people that you can see almost as if you're having a conversation with them, each and every one of them. And when I first started speaking, I can remember looking at the tops of people's heads because I was afraid to make eye contact. But when I learned to connect and just be myself as if I was having a one-on-one conversation with someone, everything transformed.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
All right. You ready for number 3, JB?
And let's take them there, Chris. Let's take them there.
Let's go. Oops. Let's go.
So number 3.
Number 3 is
they failed to prepare properly. When I first started, people would ask me all the time, do you get nervous speaking? Do you get nervous speaking? And when I first started, I did. And so I asked myself the question, why am I nervous? And I realized I was nervous because I was afraid I was going to make a mistake. And for me, it was like, okay, well, how can I avoid making a mistake? Well, the only thing I can control in that is how I prepare, right? And then not worry about it. That really taught me to prepare at a very, very high level, so that now when I hit the stage, I know I've done everything in my power, okay, to make sure that I've got my presentation down to where I want it. And so anything else happens outside of my control, I can deal with that because I've done my part. And so I learned at a very, very early stage in my career to prepare. And I also learned what works for me when it comes to preparing. That's the other thing. A lot of people don't know how to properly prepare for themselves. See, for me, it's about, I'll write out my presentation and then I can memorize most of it. And that comes from my old acting days when I used to be on stage. So I can memorize it. And then from memorizing it, I know the flow. And then I know the flow. So I know what I want to say for each part of my presentation. And that's how I prepare. But it's about practice, and repetition, you know? And so there's different ways that we prepare. You know, I had a client one time, the best way for her to prepare was to break it out in sections. So she would start with the very beginning of her presentation and nail that part first. And then she would do the content portion, and then she would do the close portion. And then when she nailed all three of those sections, then she put it together and she was able to let it flow. But being able to understand your learning style and how you prepare is very important. And then once you get that down, it's all about the practice, right, Chris?
Amen. And I'll tell you what, JB, what you said about finding your own unique style of preparation is key, because a preparation style that works for one person may not work for another. So JB talked about his ability to memorize lines like he did when he was acting. I happen to be very visual. So what I'll do, whether or not I'm even using slides for a presentation, I will literally create slides on PowerPoint. And you know, you can print those up in like 9 slides to a page. And I'll literally do that and I'll just view those. And then I'll start to visualize in my mind. Like I'll lay down and I'll visualize myself doing the talk. And not only am I visualizing what I'm going to say, I also visualize how the audience is going to respond, where they're going to laugh at my jokes, where they're going to maybe, you know, raise their hand and ask a question, etc. So I've already rehearsed that in my mind before I ever go out on stage. The other thing that I found really effective for me is, as I was studying the art of teaching, pedagogy, I think is what it's called. One of the things that educators and scientists will say is that people generally learn better when they prepare for something in small, steady steps in short periods of time over the length of, say, a week or two, versus trying to cram the night before. So if I have a major presentation, say on a Friday, starting on Monday, I'm 1 or 2 times a day, I'm rehearsing in my mind and doing my visualization for 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time. And then I put it down and then I'll come back to it the next day. So what happens is it's sinking into my mind and I'm not cramming it at the very end, like on Thursday night, but I'm slowly integrating it and making it part of my cellular memory before I ever get on stage.
Chris, and the other reason why we talk about making sure that you prepare properly, because when you've been speaking for a long time, things happen. You show up and you're ready to use a PowerPoint and technical difficulties, okay? You can't use your PowerPoint, right? And so if you prepared and you know that presentation like the back of your hand, you can still give a good, solid presentation. And Chris, I know why you're laughing. I know why you're
set me up here,
You
buddy.
got a story around that.
Yeah. He reminded me of a story that I shared before. So one of the first talks I ever gave out of state, this is about 10 years ago.
Right.
I got hired to do a talk in Utah, and it was for the Utah State nutritionists, that they did nutrition plans in school, otherwise known as the lunch ladies. No hair nets, but there were lunch ladies there. Anyway, I got there with plenty of time. I was told that I could bring my computer because I told them I had some slides. And they said, hey, Jim is the best AV guy out there. Come here, he'll set up your computer, it'll be fine. So it was on a college campus. So I found the place. I got there in plenty of time. Well, good old Jim couldn't get my slides to go. So it was a noontime speech that had to start at 12 p.m. So I said, hey, I got to go without the slides. Well, I had done the presentation so many times, I didn't need the slides. But about halfway through my talk, I made what I thought was a pretty inane point, and everyone started clapping. And I thought, man, I'm getting pretty good at this thing. And then I realized when I turned around and looked that Jim, 30 minutes into my presentation, finally got my slides up. So I had a moment of glory, JB. But the one thing I remember from that story is I was so glad that I knew my presentation backwards and forwards, because you never know if those slides aren't going to be there.
It's so important. Some other key things to remember when you're preparing is to prepare with a purpose. Practice your pauses, your transitions, your jokes, your ad libs, your stage movement, right? So, if you're making a point on this side of the stage, make that point and then move with a purpose. So practice all of those different timing things that a lot of people take for granted and don't think about. Those are very important. And a lot of us, like you and I, Chris, we like to bring people up on stage,
That's right.
You got to be able to practice those things.
That's
so
right.
Getting good at those, so you don't get caught off guard with certain things that may come up when you're bringing people on stage and this sort of thing. So practice, and great preparation. Yeah. And use videotape to record yourself so you can go back and look at what's working, what's not. We do a lot of that with our coaching. I do a lot of that with my coaching clients as well, have them videotape themselves when we go back and we look at it and we analyze it. It's a very good tool to help you prepare and practice.
And even watching yourself without the sound.
Oh, that's even more powerful.
Your body movement, right? And the other thing too, that as you're bringing that up, JB, is the practice of the pause.
Yes.
Sometimes one of the most impactful tools you can use as a speaker, because we don't like to have dead space, right? It's uncomfortable, but being able to make a point and be comfortable with a pause, to let it sink in to your audience. One of the more powerful tools I've learned throughout the years.
Same here. Good stuff.
All right,
let's move to the next one.
Let's go to number 4. So I think I'm going to take this one is that people, they talk about an event rather than tell a story. And if you think about some of the most effective and prominent speakers throughout history, throughout history books, biblical history, political history, et cetera, they were people that inspired others through stories. And there's some real reasons, and we go into this in our training, but there's certain parts of the brain that actually light up differently when you're telling stories. It's that right side, that emotional part of the brain, versus that left side of the brain, which is really about facts and figures and content, et cetera. And I've really come to learn that while it's important to have really good content as a speaker, it truly is you can have great content, but if you're not able to support it with good storytelling, it's not going to be as effective. It's almost better to have better stories and maybe, average content, although we don't want to be average at anything, than to have great content and poor stories, because people won't remember it. And one of the ways that this really came present for me is, this was, again, early in my speaking career. I was asked here in the Denver area to be part of a mastermind group, entrepreneurs to build business. And there were three distinct groups in this mastermind. And I was asked to give a business presentation in all 3 groups. And so I did that, and I think it was pretty good. To this day, I don't remember what I said, but what I do remember is this. At the end of 2 of those presentations that I gave, they were on 2 separate days with 2 separate audiences. There were 2 different people in each one of those rooms that had heard me give my keynote speech, my regular keynote speech that I give here in the Denver area. And when we went to the question and answer portion, both of them raised their hand at the end and asked me this: can you tell us about the story about the kid in the wheelchair? Now, that had nothing to do with what I had just shared with them in the hour before. But yet it was the story that they had heard me literally tell months ago is what stuck with them. And that's when the light bulb went on in my mind. It was like, wow, there is some real power in being able to deliver a powerful story.
Yeah, there's a real power to it. And the key thing is being able to tell the story, like you said, and not tell a series of events. Okay. There's an art to telling a story, because when you tell a story and you tell it the right way, you bring your audience into the journey with you. Okay. They see the room that you're in. Okay. They visualize the environment that you're talking about, being able to do that and bring them in. And one of the key things for me when I started was I had a trainer said, here's one of the best ways you can practice your story. This is one of the ways that I've always practiced my story. He said, take a friend, family member, wife, whatever, take them out to dinner. Okay. Sit across the table from them, order a nice meal, glass of wine, whatever you want to do. And then just lean forward and tell your story and practice that story and let them listen to it. Conversational, the whole nine, and then get the feedback from them. So that's one of the tools that I use to practice my stories as well. Just being able to sit across from someone and tell that story in a conversational manner. And now when you get on stage, you can do the same thing. The conversation is now, instead of being with one person, it's with several people. But now you've been able to practice, draw that person in, have the flow of the story, and have the message land the way you want it to.
Absolutely. And in fact, I think that's one of the best tips you give, JB, is being able to, take someone out for dinner and share that story. And the other thing too, when we're effective as storytellers, we're bringing people into our world. And the reason that they're connecting with that is they connect with times in their life where maybe they went through something similar. And so it's an automatic way of connecting with an audience. And when you're connecting with, you've probably in your life heard speakers that didn't have the greatest vocabulary, the greatest diction, whatever, but they were amazing storytellers. And man, you just were wrapped with attention when you heard them speak. And that's the beauty of stories. So one of the things we do in our trainings is we spend a lot of time in helping people develop stories, particularly from their everyday lives. And many people out there, JB, don't think that they have special stories, but quite honestly, many of the things that they think are ordinary can be pretty extraordinary, right? And sometimes some of the greatest wisdom comes from just everyday things that happen in life that happen with everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Good point, Chris. I love that.
All right.
We see it a lot.
That's right. So ready for the last one there, big guy?
Let's bring it home, brother.
Good.
So the number 5, one of the 5th biggest mistake that speakers make is they don't have a talk that captures, connects, and closes. Okay, so let us tell you what we're talking about here. The first thing we're talking about goes back to the story. That's one of the reasons why we teach stories so much, because that's the big connection piece of your presentation. Okay, first of all, it captures their attention, and then it creates a connection with the audience. So the stories are so powerful because we have this saying, people will remember how you made them feel before they remember what you said. That's why using stories so effectively in the beginning and throughout your presentation is so important. Okay, but there's some other ways that you can connect as well. We talked earlier, Chris, and we alluded to this. I talked about smiling throughout the presentation and knowing when to smile. That creates that connection. Okay, and then also the eye contact. I'll never forget, one of my speaker coaches told me, he said, when you're in front of an audience, I don't care if it's an audience of 50 people or 5,000 people, your goal as you stand on that stage and deliver your presentation should be to make eye contact with every single person in the audience. I've carried that with me everywhere I go throughout my career. That's my goal. And that creates a powerful connection with the audience when you can do that. Okay. The other thing we talked about, we alluded to as well, is how you connect and capture the audience by bringing people on stage. Okay. Maybe you help them do an exercise. That was one of the things that we did a lot when I first started. We would bring students on stage for different activities. So I learned early on as well how to have that type of connection in the audience. And I know, Chris, you do something really, really, really unique, but also powerful to create that connection with audience members when it comes to bringing people on stage.
Yeah, well, it came naturally for me because being a martial arts instructor my whole life, I'm a teacher. And so, and part of the arc of what I speak when I do my keynotes is around martial arts and what I call black belt leadership and having the mind of a champion. So I'll bring people up on stage and I'll put them in a martial art uniform top and I'll get them engaged. And what's so neat is when I do that, I'm not only connecting with the person that's on stage, but when I bring someone up, I start to see the cell phones come up and people take pictures, right? And they're all engaged doing their thing. I remember one year I brought this young woman up on stage and I had her do some martial art moves. And then I had her throw a kick. And when she threw her kick, her sandal flew off into the audience. I couldn't have timed it any better, but everyone loved that. They were connected with that. Gladly nobody got hit by the shoe, but it was one of those things that they remember. And I've just used that as something in my repertoire ever since. When I can bring someone up on stage, and then also once I bring them up on stage is kind of reward them. So one of the strategies that I'll use is when I bring someone up on stage, I have 2 books and I'll put my book over my heart and I'll say, hey, I want to thank Sally for coming up and helping me. As a thank you, what I'd like to do is give you this gift of my new book. And afterwards, Sally, if you want to come back to my autograph table, I'd be happy to sign it for you. Now, what I just did there is I was able to sell my book. Right? I did it very nonchalantly. I connected with someone. I made everyone aware that I have an autograph table in back, and someone felt good about getting the book. And when I started doing a strategy like that and capturing and connecting that way, my book sales went through the roof. And it was just something simple of doing it like that.
Love it. I love it. And Chris, that leads us to the closing part as well, because not only did you capture and connect the audience by that little piece with the book, but you also set up your close. Okay. You're what we call having a clear call to action. And so if one of Chris's calls to action is to have people buy his book, we always teach the method to our clients, how to embed throughout the presentation. Because closing is not an event, it's a process, right? And so how can you close throughout the presentation? Well, you can do that by embedding. Chris uses that technique to embed to the audience that he has a book. Now everyone in the audience knows that, okay? Maybe you have a workshop. And so maybe you can do it throughout the workshop, you may embed and say something like this. That's something we teach in our workshop. You probably noticed Chris and I did that.
Yeah.
Because we practice what we preach. We're
right.
Setting up our close before you get to the close, okay? Because as I said, it's not an event.
That's right.
It's a process.
Yeah. I mean, one of the strategies that I use, and I have permission to do this, is I have a really powerful story that I use from one of my coaching clients. And it totally connects with the point that I'm trying to make. And I have permission to use the story. I don't name that person by name, but it has been one of the most beneficial things for me to actually have conversations with people that are interested in my coaching, because I'm talking about a real experience and I'm talking about a success story, and that connects with them as well.
Excellent.
All right.
Well, Chris, I think that finishes up the 5 biggest mistakes speakers make.
I think it does. I think that went by pretty quick there, brother. So I'll tell you what, folks, what we'd like to do now. Hopefully you're sitting there and you're going, wow, I love what these guys said. See, there's some great value in it, but man, what's a possibility of maybe taking my speaking to a new level? Maybe you learned totally enough today you got all that you need, or you might be sitting there going, man, I've learned some things, but I know that there's more that I could take advantage of. So what we want to do is share with you an event that we have coming up this August, and we call it the Champion Speakers Academy. And what we do in this workshop, whether you are someone that's just started speaking, whether you're somebody that speaks on a regular basis, or if you're even a seasoned pro, I know that you'll be able to get some benefit from what we provide for you. And so what you receive when we have the Champion Speakers Academy is, number one, we help you get real clarity on your target market. Who's your target audience that you want to speak to? There may be more than one, but then how do you adjust those talks to make sure that you meet their needs? Number two is you learn how to communicate the problem that you solve. So many times we talk, you think about this, most people are inspired by pleasure or how to avoid pain. And I think that's, even though I tend to be a pretty positive person, if you can help identify a pain point in your talk that you can help solve for a person that's listening, that goes light years ahead in terms of you being able to possibly have them work with you. Number two is to craft this signature presentation that helps you educate, entertain, engage, and convert. I mean, we love being able to be in front of the room and do all those things. And I love being able to speak. I tend to be a little bit of a ham myself. I think my friend JP is a little bit of a ham also. So we love to do that. So we help you learn how to find that personality and really let it shine for you on stage. You also learn some tools and techniques that transform your presentation. You know, there's one way of being able to push information out. There's another way to be able to engage an audience. And we've got some what we call ninja tools to help you do that. And of course, there's much, much more. So JB, why don't you walk them through how the logistics work for this upcoming workshop?
Absolutely. Our next workshop, as Chris says, in August 19th and 20th, 2 full day session. And on that very first day, the first session, you get, we simply help you, as Chris said, answer those questions, target audience, problem you solve. But we also help you put together your signature presentation on that very first day. Okay. So from beginning to end, story, content, flow, call to action, closing story, we help you put all that together. And then the second day, you come back and you get to stand and deliver that presentation a few times and get feedback from not just Chris and I, but other people in the room. Okay. So other participants in the room. So you get real-time coaching and feedback. And so we love doing that. But you also get 2 one-on-one coaching sessions with Chris and I, 2 Zoom coaching sessions to help you craft your message, you know, hone your story, anything that you're having trouble with or you want to get better with. We use those 2 coaching sessions for those purposes to help you sharpen your skills as you go along.
Absolutely. And one thing I can promise you is when you leave on that second day, you will have a 25-minute talk that you can deliver. Our past graduates have all said that's what they've been able to do. And in fact, we've got some great success stories with people that literally within a week or 2 after they took our course, they were able to go and deliver an entire new keynote. So it's not just going to be about theory. There's a lot of practical application, and you're going to have some live experience so you can be as powerful as a speaker as you can be. So let me go through a little bit about some of the other benefits. Is, you know, you help you identify that client avatar. You gain a crystal clear purpose of the message. You learn the power of story. You learn to create that signature presentation. So how does it look from a logistics standpoint and from a cost standpoint? Well, the program investment for this, let me do that, is regularly $29.97 or 3 payments of $10.97. However, if you want to take advantage of an early registration that we're offering through the end of June, what we'll do is that price on a one-time basis goes to $24.97 or 3 installments of $9.97. And what we'd encourage you to do too, if you have a phone with you, you can literally just go ahead and take a picture of the QR code there. It'll take you right to the information page where you can enroll. Or if you're like, wow, this looks really good, but I'm not really sure if I need to have some questions answered, we would love to have a conversation with you and do a discovery call to make sure this is a real good match for you. So I know Anz is going to be putting in the chat box right now a link to for you to set up a Zoom call with JB and myself and just have a discussion to see if this is a program is right for you, et cetera. You'll also be receiving that link in subsequent emails after this, that it's going to be providing you with the recording of this webinar, as well as some other things about our programs. So that's how the logistics of the program work. And what we thought we'd do right now is, if everyone has some questions, we'd love to be able to answer those for you. So I'm going to take this and put this over into gallery view. And there we go.
Awesome. So any questions, unmute yourself and fire away. We're here for you.
I have a question.
Sure,
Thomas. Is this in person or is it online?
It's in person.
Yeah.
in person?
Well, in person on the 19th and 20th, but the Zoom call, one-on-one coaching is Zoom.
What if I want to do the one-on-one coaching on Zoom in person? It's a joke. I'm kidding.
Good one, Thomas.
But
I caught Chris off guard. He's like, I've never heard that question.
Yeah, right. Yeah. My hypnotherapist here is putting me to sleep. Okay. Yeah, putting a suggestion in my mind. Yeah. So the 19th and 20th are in person, but then the two coaching sessions, those are done via Zoom.
Sir.
And then what are the times like from what time to what time?
Yeah, they're 45-minute sessions. And what we do is once you enroll, what we do is we put a calendar together. And then we have times that both of us are available for you to match.
You're talking about that. So were you talking about the time of the 2-day workshop?
Both, I guess now.
Yeah,
the workshop too.
So yeah, the times for the one-on-one sessions that'll be determined by you. You get this. We set that. You get to choose the times. But as far as the workshop, we start at 8:30, Chris, and go to
5 o'clock.
4:35, right, on both days.
Yeah.
And we get a lot done. Power pack both days. Any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you have any other questions, Thomas?
No, I think that was it. I think I have a pretty clear understanding. I know someone that did it that said a lot of good things about it. So yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff. Anyone else? Question? I think Spencer's talking, but we can't hear him.
Yeah, I do that sometimes. I forgot to unmute. So listen, I've given a number of speeches as a political person. Some have been great, some have been not so great. So I have the Baptist preacher syndrome. Okay, and what I mean is when I'm on, and the crowd is with me. But sometimes Baptist preachers think if they keep going and going, the Lord will put some thought and some words in their mouth that will inspire other people. But it doesn't happen, so they just keep going and going and going. How do you prevent that from happening?
Yeah. Wow. JB, you want to take? I got some thoughts, JB, but you got something to say?
I'll take it first. I love it.
All right.
I'm laughing because I've seen that play out. And you described it, that made me flash back to when I was 12 years old in church. But that's one of the reasons why we teach an outline and a structure, and then we talk so much about preparation and practice. Okay, and don't get me wrong, Chris and I have been doing this long enough to where there's been presentations where, because of the audience, because of the inspiration of that audience, there's something in our heart to, hey, say this, share this with that audience. Okay, but that's different than waiting for what you said, the divine to come in and just bring, And so what we love to do is to make sure that you have that inspiration built into your presentation, and you're not waiting, you're not there talking and waiting for it to hit. When we help you design that presentation, you're going to have the inspiration, and you'll know exactly where it's at. And then if you get a moment where there's something else you want to add, you can add it, but also being on time. So
yeah,
I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I think having a structure, obviously, it doesn't mean that you have to give that exact speech, because as JB said, if you have a moment of inspiration, he and I have both, man, we get off stage, we're like, man, I wasn't expecting to talk about that, but it just came, right? But one of the things that we're both, I know, huge proponents of is finishing on time. Mm-hmm. Particularly as we've learned, gone out and spoken professionally, you have to remember that you have different customers. You, of course, have the audience, but the other one is the event planner. And that's the person that's put this all together. And if he or she has got a certain schedule and they've got other speakers that are coming after you, and you're not landing that, I call it landing the plane on time, you may never get asked back regardless how good you were. And I was giving a talk maybe about 4 years ago. It was in a big insurance company here in Denver. And the guy that preceded me was just droning on and on and on. And I'm getting ready to go on stage, and this guy's over time. And I'm watching the event planner pace back and forth like a caged tiger. going, oh my gosh, will he just shut up already? And she was really agitated. And plus he was putting them all to sleep. So I like, man, I got to get these guys going. But I realized how important that was to stay on time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to give you guys a quick compliment. When you were talking about maintaining eye contact and how important it is to look at audience, I relate to that because I accidentally fell into that. I was, when I first started speaking, just to make sure I didn't go get thrown off, I would look at the top of people's heads.
Me too. That's what I did too.
So
oh my gosh.
Then one time I'm giving a speech and I think I'm going someplace with it and I think it's getting good. And then as I'm looking at the top of people's heads, I'm seeing their heads nod.
Yeah.
And then I make eye contact and they nod even more. And I made more eye contact and I got more nods. So the audience told me when I was going in the right direction.
There you go. Love that story. Isn't that funny? That's what I used to do too. I used to look at the tops of people's heads and it was unconscious. And I was doing a leadership training years ago. It was a month-long leadership training. And I had one of my guys say, "You're not looking at anyone." I said, "I'm looking at you." And he goes, "No, you're looking at the tops of our heads. You're not connecting." He was totally oblivious on my part. Didn't know that at all. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Spencer. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very powerful and important connection piece right there. Awesome. Any other questions?
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, we just obviously would love to have at least a conversation with you if you think that this is something that you'd like to pursue. And again, if you have a conversation with us, no pressure, just to see if this would be a match for you. We, as you can tell, are pretty passionate about what we do. And we've both individually built our own businesses through speaking, love speaking ourselves, love being on stage, and also love teaching. So if you think that there might be a match for you and you'd like to continue to have a conversation, if you signed up for this, you'll be getting an email that has a link for you to set up a 30-minute coaching call or discovery call with JB and myself. And would love to have that conversation with you. So JB, anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Just thanks to all of you. We know that there's a million other things you could be doing right now, whether it be sleeping, spending time with family, whatever, but you carved out the time to spend with us. And let me tell you, we don't take that for granted and we appreciate it. So thanks for joining.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'll tell what everyone, unless you've got any other questions, we're going to let you go. If you want to stand here a little bit and ask us a question personally, we'll be willing to do that. But wish you nothing but the best. Hey, Spencer, do a great job tomorrow, brother.
Yeah, good luck with that, brother.
It's great seeing you, man. We'll have to start seeing each other more than like once every 5 or 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, we will. I actually will probably give you a call to give you a decompression of how.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Love to hear it. Please do. I'd love to hear it.
And I picked up some tips, so thank you.
Good. I'm glad it helped. It helped.
Awesome.
Okay, everybody. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for being here and look forward to connecting with all of you soon. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night, all.